Hello and welcome to this video, which is about parenting style. You will have been raised by your parents and have experienced their way of parenting, which then might influence your expectations of your young person and the way that you communicate and relate to them. And the other parent, co-parent, partner or spouse will have their own experience of life, which may be completely contradictory to yours. And it's useful as two parents, either living together or trying to raise a child together in separate houses, to have a common parenting style, or at least have that conversation with the other person so that you know where they're coming from. Because if your child experiences two conflicting styles of parenting, depending on who they're with, that can be a little bit confusing for them. And in the literature, they tend to talk about three main types of parenting. Authoritarian parents, who are down one end of the spectrum, and permissive parents, who are down the other end of the spectrum, and then authoritative parents, who are somewhere in between. So let's start with authoritarian parents. Authoritarian parents have clear boundaries, very strict rules, and clear expectations of behaviour. They don't allow room for error. They tend to expect the child to do as they're told without any discussion, and can be a little bit emotionally distant from the young person on occasion. Permissive parents down the other end of the spectrum, on the other hand, tend to want to be more friendly with their young person. They don't set very clear boundaries, they don't have very high expectations, and there's no behaviour rules in place, though they're very emotionally warm to their young person. And then you have authoritative parents who are somewhere in between. They also have clear expectations and high expectations of what their young person will achieve in life. They have clear behaviour expectations and boundaries for their young person. Where they tend to differ is that they do accept mistakes. They are a little bit more emotionally warm than authoritarian parents, and they tend to support the development of the emotional intelligence of their young person. So, what type of parent do you think you are? And how does that influence the way you relate to your young person? Having clear boundaries in place, clear expectations from your young person, and allowing them room for error means that they will be able to grow and develop as a young person. Whilst they may not be able to, you will be in charge of setting overall behaviour expectations and rules in your home. You can have the conversation with them. When they make a mistake, ask them what they've learnt about it. I remember when I was working in a previous job and I saw a young person that had got themselves into a bit of a silly situation, and the resulting thing meant that her mum was called to the emergency department to discover that her young person had had too much alcohol to drink. And she literally got a knock on the door at 3 a.m. asking her to come to the emergency department because her daughter had been on a sleepover. Now, of course, there was two ways in which she could go into the department. She was very, very scared about what was happening and really uncertain about what was going on. But instead of running into the department all guns blazing and yelling at her daughter, she went in there and she was calm and she made sure that her young person was okay, and they got home. And then what she did afterwards was that she sort of helped the young person to see the consequences of her actions, because what ensued was a number of phone calls from different professionals, meetings to attend, and, things that, wouldn't have been there had the incident not happened. And I then had to meet with the young person in school. And the young person said to me that her mum had expressed how disappointed she was in what had happened. And she felt awful about that. And she wanted to make amends. She was really sorry for the way things had turned out. And she wanted her mum to be able to trust her again. Because having that close connection with you is really important. And so the way that the mum approached it in that way did help the young person to learn for future what the outcomes were when certain behaviours or certain things happened, And in this case, she had put herself at quite a lot of risk. If you find yourself in conflict with the other parent about, the way that you want to set boundaries and behaviour expectations and all those sorts of things, it can be good to have that conversation separate to the young person rather than potentially falling out over things in front of them. And just keeping that line of consistency so that they know where they stand with you and they know where they stand with the other parent, regardless of whether you're living together or you're not living together. And I'm going to look a little bit more in one of the future videos on the importance of boundary setting. So I hope you found that helpful, and I'll see you on the next video.